ready to introduce our guest speaker, who is Mary Wykstra. She and I go way back. She started as a zookeeper like I did in our early days, and she was in Binder Park Zoo in Michigan, and then met her through some professional conferences, and then she went to the Hogle Zoo and was an exhibit designer and caught the cheetah bug and went to Africa, and we never saw her again until she comes back and does these. So she is the founder and director for Action for Cheetahs in Kenya, and she's been doing that since 2001. Wow. And she's been coming here every year in the fall to give us an update on her project and sell some of her African wares. And so with that, I would like to introduce Mary. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of all the zoos that I go to, I think the person that I have kind of the most long-standing friendship with has been Gretchen. So thank you for always hosting me. I know I always end up having you guys start your lecture series early, and then it kind of throws you all out of whack. But when I'm passing through, I'm on a fall fundraising tour, and I time my fall fundraising tour around some certain conferences that I go to and give presentations at those conferences. So I'm not as flexible as what I could be to be able to fit within the right time zone. So again, thank you guys for coming on this kind of off season, and thank you for always accommodating my timing. So today what I'm going to do is tell you a bit more about our project. How many of you have heard my talks before? Okay, not quite half, so I'll give you a little bit more of an introduction. Action for Cheetahs in Kenya, like Gretchen said, was started in 2001 under the Cheetah Conservation Fund, which is a Namibia-based cheetah conservation organization that had been there for 10 years before I got my start. And basically what happened when the funding through the Cheetah Conservation Fund ran out, in order to try to do my own fundraising, it's hard for a lot of institutions to give funds to two different projects under one program. So a lot of people said, well, we have some extra funding, but we don't give funding to two projects under one program. So I'm really good friends with Dr. Lori Marker, and we made the decision that if I formed my own organization, I would stay affiliated with CCF. I am still considered to be the Kenya representative to the Cheetah Conservation Fund, and they give me a lot of advice, and they still continue to give me financial support as well as technical support in our projects. So what I registered was an organization, I guess this pointer doesn't seem to, there it is, okay. I registered an organization called Carnivores Livelihoods and Landscapes because of the fact that we do a bit more than cheetahs, and we wanted to have something under which we could have a foundation for other carnivore programs to join. This year, the Mary Cheetah Project joined, and in addition to Action for Cheetahs in Kenya, the Cool Crafts program is also another project that is under this Carnivores Livelihoods and Landscapes umbrella. And so as a nonprofit, we've been based in Kenya since 2009. Like I said, the funding ran out with Cheetah Conservation Fund in 2008. So as I already said before switching slides, sometimes I forget to switch the slides when I talk. But we wanted to make sure that those organizations that were trying to start carnivore programs in Kenya, whether it was a researcher that just needed to come in and hire some employees, or whether it's an organization that wanted to develop itself to stay underneath us or to get their grassroots started and be able to form their own organizations eventually, to be able to give them legal advice on hiring employees, registering in Kenya, meet the legal obligations for taxes and all of that kind of stuff, because it's really complicated. So I now have a board of directors that can help us keep organized and follow legal compliancy. We are now registered as a charity in the US as well, under Carnivores Livelihoods and Landscapes, and we're still awaiting the IRS approval for our own 501c3. But right now, if anybody makes a donation to Action for Cheetahs in Kenya, it still goes through Project Survival or Cheetah Conservation Fund if somebody needs a tax-deductible accountability. Action for Cheetahs in Kenya is set up as a research organization, community-based, and education opportunities every chance we get. So we try to make science-based decisions, and then to share that through awareness and outreach within the communities, but also internationally, like I do when I come back on these. I've been based in Kenya since 2001, And our project works with local community members to monitor the cheetahs and to work with those people who are having human-wildlife conflict.
And so, as you can see, there's a few pictures of cheetahs. I'm really lucky if I get to see a cheetah about once every 6 months to once every 8 months. I get very excited when I see a cheetah track. Our dogs are out there right now finding more cheetah poop than we found when I was doing it without dogs, so I'll tell you more about our dog program. So I get excited when I see the signs that cheetahs exist. But cheetahs in community areas are very shy and very, very difficult to see. So I actually, when I come to zoos, this 3 months that I'm in America, I see more cheetahs than I see when I'm in Kenya by going to the zoos.
Our aim is to be able to practice conservation and at the same time help humans with their livelihood development and prevent those conflicts that are occurring.
This is the only slide, I promise, that is full of text, but I want you to know a bit more about what our objectives in Kenya are. We do research in human-wildlife conflict to try to mitigate that conflict. We want to understand cheetah status and health and their habitat selection, so I'll talk a little bit about that research. We mitigate natural resource competition, so it's not just the cheetah that becomes in conflict, but the cheetah's prey over water, grazing area, all of those aspects that all put together to make the cheetah's ecosystem are a big part of what our research is all about. And finally, and probably the most important element, is that we take that opportunity to influence public and administrative decisions and policies and programs so that we get our research back to the people who make those decisions and the everyday people. So it's every level that we try to bring our research back into every level, especially in Kenya. The Maramir Cheetah Project is a little bit more research-oriented. It is more in protected areas, mainly in the Masai Mara, but she's expanding into another park called the Meru National Park, and I'll show you a map in a couple of minutes so you get an idea of the scope of where we are. She is doing acoustical research. She's looking at how cheetahs communicate with each other. And so she has this big headset and big microphone that she listens to cheetahs. And again, I'm very jealous of my colleague. She gets to see cheetahs every day. She also works with us on genetic analysis, collecting fecal material. Not only should she get to see cheetahs, but she gets to see them poop almost every day too. In that is a part of parasitology. So when you collect the cheetah fecal material immediately, you will find whatever kind of parasites are in it. So we do have some researchers that are looking at the parasites and basically what is the morphology and physiology of those parasites, what species and subspecies of parasites, and do they carry diseases that are a threat to the cheetahs and other species as well. And finally, hormone status. She's doing reproductive hormones as well as stress hormone analysis in the cheetahs that she's able to follow that are in the national parks and are more habituated to people being around. So the director of that project is Elena Chelesheva. She's a Russian with a PhD from Russia who started her work in zoos as well, where she used to do hand rearing and breeding of cheetahs in Russia. So a little bit more about the cheetah and why the cheetah itself is special too. The Latin derivative for the Acinonyx jubatus is a not moving claw and a maned animal, or having a mane. So the cheetah's claws are semi-retractable. Unlike most of the domestic cats and a lot of the big Panthera species, the cheetah cannot fully put its claws back into a sheath. So those claws become a little bit rubbed like a dog's, a little bit less sharp, and they use them like running cleats. The babies have this mantle that resembles an animal called a honey badger, and the honey badger is a tough little guy out there that most animals don't want to mess with because he is not susceptible to venoms. He has a really tough skin that hardly anything can bite through him, and when he gets aggressive, he's a scary little guy. So when the cheetah cubs are little and they open their mouth to hiss or at an animal approaching, a lot of the animals will run away thinking they are a honey badger, and they don't mess with them. So basically this not moving claw maned animal refers to the claws and the babies, and that's what the Latin derivative means. The reason we chose, Elena and I chose to work in Kenya, is that Kenya is central to the entire Eastern African population of cheetahs. We estimate that we have between 1,200 and 1,400 left in Kenya alone. The largest population down here in southern Africa, Namibia, and Botswana is about 2,500. And so together with the surrounding Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, tiny little population in Uganda and Tanzania, we maybe reach about 2,000 in that whole region. But it is the second largest population, and therefore it is the connection between the Samarangai, the Raniai, and the Acinonyx jubatus subspecies. So it is kind of the melding pot of all three subspecies. And we have actually found, with the genetic studies we've done so far, we have found alleles of all three subspecies in Kenya. So that's really, really critical for the future survival of cheetahs because of the fact that we have jubatus. If something happens to them down here, we would be putting the same subspecies back, and the Samarangai and the Raniai being one of the most healthy populations of cheetahs that exist. We didn't know exactly how many cheetahs were present when I began my research in 2001. So we decided we needed to look at the land use change concept and do a range-wide cheetah evaluation. We traveled to every corner of Kenya, and we were able to find that the cheetah population was a lot more linked than we originally thought, which is really good. We found that there were less signs of inbreeding, which is also really good, and the three subspecies like I said before. Still, infrastructure development, human population, retaliation for livestock loss, and persecution just by people who fear the large cats were the things that we had to deal with in how we set up our programs. You can see that the locations that are in the dark blue, this is actually water, this is not us. So the Masai Mara area, the Salama study site, the Meru area, and the Samburu study site. I'll show you another map in a minute that shows that better. But this linear development, the development of cities and towns, the putting up of fences is what's a threat to the corridors that allow cheetahs to get to each other to maintain that strong genetic quality that we currently have. Cheetahs are adapted for speed. They are the fastest land mammal. They can go from 0 to a little over 70 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. The only thing that humans have created that can accelerate at the same rate is a Ferrari car. And the reason they can do that, they have a flexible spine, they have very loose limb attachment, their joints are quite loose in the way they attach, and they act like a spring when that cheetah starts to run. A cheetah's stride is about 8 meters, which is 24 feet. And at that time, only 1 foot touches the ground, or it's literally flying at 2 points in its stride. And 24 feet, I'm going to guess this is about 25 or 26 feet across here. So imagine only 1 foot touches that ground. From the time the right foot touches the ground till that right front foot touches the ground again. This at full speed is a full stride of a cheetah. So it's just amazing how it can pretty much fly when it's in the open savanna. Other ways that the cheetahs have their social structure, their lifespan is usually between 7 and 10 years. The females are typically solitary, but we have found in Kenya, due to the bush velds that we have in Kenya and less open plains, we have found that females will sometimes join each other for short periods of time. When they join each other, it's usually when they have cubs of similar age. And I used to hear a lot, I saw a boy cheetah and a girl cheetah and their babies. Because of course, most species have a boy and a girl and their babies, right? But what we found out is most of the time when they saw 2 adults, it was probably a mother with her previous daughter or her sister with cubs of similar ages. And they sometimes stay together for 2 to 4 weeks, and then they would separate again. Males are usually a coalition, meaning that they are a group of males that will travel together for life. They hunt together, they breed together, they sleep together, they just do absolutely everything together. And again, originally we always thought that it was only brothers that traveled in a coalition, but the genetic studies are showing us that, first of all, a mother cheetah can breed with multiple males. So brothers are related maternally, but they can have many different fathers in one litter, and not necessarily fathers who are brothers with each other either. So they call that the cheating cheetahs, right? The other thing we're finding is that some of our male coalitions, when we get the genetics back, they may even have different mothers, and sometimes unrelated mothers. So I'll tell you a little bit more about her genetic studies as well. Cheetahs have a large home range. It can range anywhere from 26 kilometers squared to 3,000 square kilometers. So when they have that big of a home range, they overlap with each other. They do not defend it like a territory. They actually kind of try to avoid each other when they see each other, and they try to avoid the other predators. We also knew that cheetahs were diurnal hunters. Their eyes have a similar number of rods and cones as what humans do. They can see mostly in color. Their pupils are round compared to other, like if you look at your domestic cat, it's an oval-shaped pupil that only gets round when it expands in the dark. The cheetahs stay round all the time, which is the same as people's do. And so they're more adapted for being able to hunt in low light to good light. However, we are seeing some adaptations to, again, land use change and human encroachment, that they are hunting more at night. I'll talk about that later too. They are quite weak compared to other predators. A cheetah is successful at making a kill 50% of the time from the time it starts a hunt until it finishes. However, it loses about 50% of those kills to other predators. Even something as small as a jackal will chase a cheetah away because the cheetah itself doesn't want to fight. It doesn't want to be injured. It knows that it has to use its body to hunt, and therefore it will abandon the prey before it will fight for it. So she has to be very careful about her timing and her location of hunting in order to avoid losing that prey to the other predators. So this is, I knew I had this somewhere. I guess I should have had it earlier in the slide presentation. But these are the places where, again, the Afi and Salama study site, which is the first study site that we formed, the Maybai study site up here, the Masai Mara, and the Meru project. There are 3 other projects that work with the with the Kenya Wildlife Service. There's a Mara predator project that includes lions, hyenas, and cheetahs. There's a Savo cheetah project, and there's a Laikipia predator project that mainly focuses on wild dogs, but also does a little bit with lions and cheetahs as well. We're advising these 2 sites here with their rangers in a local conservancy on how to collect data for cheetahs, so we can include that in our database as well. So you can see that where we're located is mainly around where that largest amount of human development is happening. Part of what we do with the community is that we help them with alternative livelihoods. So when we travel on our fundraising tours, we also bring crafts that are made by the local community. In addition to that, we do sports programs, tree planting, water conservation, because the habitat of the cheetah is also essential. Not just that we're just trying to save cheetahs, but we're trying to make sure that because 80% of the cheetahs live in contact with humans, that our efforts also focus on local livelihoods. How do we identify different cheetahs? We use camera traps, and in Elena's case, she sees them and photographs them. And Elena came up with a way to actually be able to fully identify a cheetah from the time they're about 3 months of age until they are full adults. Their spot patterns are in the same place. I like to say that if people had spots on their face, I could tell the difference too. I'm horrible with people's names, but I can tell a cheetah just by seeing it in a second, right? So this is what we look for as we look at patterns in their spots. Elena has identified 180 adult cheetahs between 2001 and current. Obviously they're not all still alive, but what it allows her to do is to look at the mothers and the siblings and to find out that they're 85% related to each other within the Masai Mara. So the next step in the genetic study is to find out who the fathers are and if those fathers are bringing in the genetics from further away. So she's able to identify the year of birth, the kinship, the mothers, the grandmothers, the brothers, and the sisters. The other thing she's been able to do is to look at how long the cheetahs are surviving in the Masai Mara itself. In 2001, when she first volunteered for the Kenya Wildlife Service, she's had this female cheetah that she found that was an adult. They were expecting her to be about 2 or maybe 3 years old. and she had this spot pattern that she identified on this cheetah. In 2011, when Elena came back to start her own project in Kenya, she found that same cheetah. And now she's found several other cheetahs, females, that have lived as much as 13 years. So that's on the high end of the life expectancy, or the average life of cheetahs. And the males that she's been able to identify in the same method have lived up to about 9 years of age. So what it basically means is that those that are able to survive are doing a good job in surviving long into their life expectancy. In zoos, for example, cheetahs can live up to about 17. Usually 14 or 15 is about the max, but they can live to 17, where they're getting health care and good diets and always enough water.
Cheetahs are declining at a rate of 2.1% annually across their entire range. We estimate that we have only about 1,200 to 1,400 cheetahs left in Kenya. So it's really essential for the population there that our conservation activities are targeted towards the people that live with them.
So our focus in Kenya has been on the different land use categories within the country. Elena's focus, like I said, is the national parks and reserves, where she's able to look at the behaviors and look at what's happening inside of the parks. But 80% of the cheetahs that we identified in our national survey live outside of parks and reserves. And there are 3 other land use categories across Kenya. There's commercial ranches, there's subsistence, which is usually mixed livestock and cropping. And then there are pastoral communities, which are the nomadic communities. So our focus of 80% of our effort has been outside of the protected reserves. There's a couple of small parks that are enveloped in alongside of our study areas in the communities, but more than 80% is looking at that. And this infrastructure and linear development, oops, I went too far. This infrastructure and linear development is what we're really focusing on, is when land is being settled across this area, how does that affect the corridors of movement of the cheetahs themselves? So in our National Cheetah Survey, we looked at all of these red dots on this map is where we found houses or towns or villages, and we were able to see that of this 80% of the cheetahs that live outside of parks and reserves, almost 100% of them have to come into contact with a human at one point or another. And up here in the north, these gaps do not necessarily mean that nobody lives there. Those are just the areas where, due to insecurities, we were not able to get into some of those areas. We are we are in the middle of starting our second National Cheetah Survey. I have a Kenyan PhD student that is working on this national survey, and now there's a lot more security in these areas, and we're going to actually be able to go in here and do the same kind of mapping using a gap analysis of the places that we missed the first time, so that we can know if this has kind of the same density of cheetahs as what we had in the other areas. What our results will be is a whole trend of the cheetah population across the country. Elena, again, being able to see these cheetahs and some of these adaptations we talked about. The first cheetah that I put a radio collar on in the Samburu National Reserve, we lost that radio collar after 3.5 months. We found her, but she had cubs, so we couldn't remove the collar right away. But that collar stopped working because the cheetah was swimming across the river. So our radio collar was water resistant, but not waterproof. And this showed us that, again, this adaptation, you don't really think of a cheetah as being a swimming animal. Our cheetah swam across the river 4 times in 3 months. Over her head, definitely, in the water. The other thing that we found looking at our radio collars and some of the behavior studies that Elena is doing is that cheetahs actually do hunt at night more than they used to. I used to lay in my tent on a full moon night. I would listen to the sound of the animals out there, and it was quite quiet on those full moon nights, and I would think, the cheetah's hunting tonight because she can see. And now, because of the radio collars and the new information that we found, it's the darkest, scariest, noisiest nights that I now lay in bed and say, the cheetah's out there hunting, I hope she's having a good time. We also found that a lot of their longest movements, and so these collars record what we call XYZ coordinates, so it's moving forward, moving side to side, and moving up and down, right? So when their head goes up and she lays back down. The most active times were the darkest of nights. The longest distance movements were the darkest of nights. So it kind of shoots in the foot everything we thought we knew about cheetahs by being able to get these kind of radio collars on these animals and having the security to work in these areas even late at night. We have two project sites that are our main bases. The Salama site that I showed you that was up in the northern part of Kenya. This happens to be the camp itself where we stay. We keep our camps very basic so that the local people also feel comfortable coming to talk to us. The only kind of thing that we do have is we have solar panels for our electricity, which has become a blessing as well because people come and charge their cell phones. In exchange for charging their cell phone, they have to talk about cheetahs with us. So it gives us opportunities also to expand our education opportunities when they come around. But people definitely feel more comfortable coming to this than if we had a big house with lots of lights on all the time and stuff like that. In this particular study area, I just about gave up on this area. We dropped from 29 cheetahs down to 2 in the course of 2007 to 2015. And I was ready to close up the camp saying, we've just shown that cheetahs cannot survive in human-dominated landscapes where land subdivision is happening. But as soon as people began to settle, 2013, 2014, people had built their houses and made their shambas, and our education program kicked in, the cheetahs actually started coming back. We now have 7 adult cheetahs, of which 2 had babies in our study area last year. So that shows that with conservation and education programs in an area, even when it looks like the cheetahs would have been extirpated in the past, we can have cheetahs surviving in these human-dominated landscapes. So our focus in this area was looking at the transition of these commercial ranches that were down in this southern section into the subsistence farming, which is the ones that are not necessarily selling their crops or their livestock into commercial zones. They just raise what they need to survive. What we found is temporarily the cheetahs moved up into this Akikapiti area. We actually began doing some of our research up there around 2007, 2008 as well. So we had background information and we were able to see this population of cheetahs went from 14 to 25. This population dropped from 29 down to 2 and now back up to 7. There's still more cheetahs in the commercial ranches because there's a little bit more game. There's a lot more tolerance for the presence of cheetahs and a lot more places for them to travel with their babies. But we're no longer just a buffer area. We have resident cheetahs in this area now as well. What we're facing now is just last week, we had a cheetah that was hit by a car on a highway that runs through here. That was the 19th cheetah hit by car in the last 10 years. So we have had master students that have been out there doing research on what we call linear development, which is highways and railways. We also have a railway that runs along this side of it that is a standard gauge high-speed railway from Nairobi to the Mombasa port. And what they did when they put that railway up is they put fences all along the high-speed railway to keep people and their livestock off. And we fought really hard within this little zone right through here to make sure that there were wildlife and livestock corridors. We actually had lots of meetings with the China government, who are the ones who developed that railway. They came in where they had closed off sections. We said we have to have these opened. We had a leopard that had come from this area over here, came across just before a fence got put up and got stuck on our side, got killed by people. So we pranced on into the railway office and said, you have to open that gate back up again that goes under the railway. And they did. They listened to us. This past year, we had an incident right over here, just outside of our regular study area. The railway comes right along here and then goes right up there. We had an incident just out here where we received a phone call that said, there are some Maasai warriors who have gathered and they're trying to kill some cheetah babies. Can you come quick? So we went over there, and when we got there, the guys were really angry. They had spears, they had dogs. My staff were very uncomfortable, but they wanted to find out what had happened. The warrior said, we killed the mother cheetah, and now we want to kill the babies. We didn't find evidence. We found a place where they said they burned the cheetah, but there was nothing left, and we found 6 baby cheetahs. So we found 6 orphan baby cheetahs. 2 of those babies had been taken back to a manyatta, which is the place where the local people there live, and they had been bitten by a dog. As we were raising these babies, the injuries were not bad, but the babies developed distemper. And we ended up losing 5 of the 6 babies. One of them has now just reached 10 pounds, and she's doing really well. But what it's also struck home to me is that we need to work a lot more in the One Health aspect. Because if these little babies caught distemper, we know that domestic dogs are passing distemper into other wildlife animals as well. So our vaccination campaign has to really kick into gear to look at how we can prevent diseases from spreading in this area. And so little Blake, which is the name of the little surviving cheetah, is going to be our ambassador to talk about what happens when diseases are out of control in domestic animals and spread into wild animals as well. Our staff conduct interviews. They use this information to understand problems and to find solutions. Like I said, we don't just say, oh no, there's distemper, and then walk away. We use that to find a solution to that problem. Making science-based decisions and sharing that information back with the community again. Our people go out and advise people on how to protect their livestock from being killed by not just cheetahs, but any other predator. They work with local and international students to help improve the capacity within the community, and they use all of this data, like I said, to go back into policies and protocols. We also, with my staff, we came up with what we wanted to achieve in the community, which is to have someone in each of our study sites say the word cheetah in their household each and every day. And to do that, we need to be able to reach the youth, the adults, and everyone in between. So we've developed a curriculum guide, which we give to the schools, and they're able to use them in after-school programs, but it is a fun way of learning. Like, it uses maths and geography and even a little bit of cultural religion in this book to use the cheetah as a tool for helping people to learn. We had a student who conducted pre- and post surveys with the students that used the book and looked at what happened to their grades over the year of them using this book, and every one of the students that were in the program here did better in their overall grades after using this book. So it is an educational tool for the school to use as well. The other thing that we are doing is using cheetah in sports. When we give balls to the schools, by the way, the balls are over here, part of our crafts made in Kenya. When we give a ball, when you buy a ball, we give a ball to a school for everyone that sells. And when we give them to the school, we don't just drop the balls off and go away. We do a program where we present them to the teachers, and we talk about why cheetahs are important, and we then begin to talk about the curriculum book as well. So it's a whole educational program centered around the sports and conservation as well. The other study area that I've been talking about is up in the northern part of Samburu. And there I thought, okay, we're going to implement exactly the same programs because we've done it all now, and we're going to have these programs that we can duplicate in another area. I was wrong. Working up in Samburu is very different from working down in the southern part of Kenya. The culture is totally different, the family structure is different, their beliefs are very different, and their way of raising their livestock are very different. So I had to take another step back. It was almost like going to work in a whole different country because of how we had to adapt our programs. We still could give the same message. They still had the same problem, predators killing livestock and conflict over resources. But the way of dealing with it became very different. In 2010, we did our baseline data collection. By 2015, we set up our second field base. Here we work with the Mabai Conservancy and the Conservancy Rangers that are there as well, and with the local community. One of the problems that we began facing up there is that people were wanting to bring baby cheetahs to us because they thought, oh, you're putting together a cheetah project, we want you to have these babies. Our first and foremost goal is to get those babies back with the mother as quickly as we can. We have taken 7 babies and put them back with their mother successfully. And so our education campaigns up there are, we don't want the babies. We want the babies to stay with the mother, and we want to prevent livestock losses from happening in your area. Part of the way to prevent the livestock losses from happening has been to work with a local developer in how to deter the predators from coming into the livestock enclosures. So we set up these radio traps where we learned a lot about especially hyenas and how they approach the boma. And we first tried this light here, which is called the lion elephant deterrent light. It was actually first kind of discovered by a young Maasai boy near the Nairobi National Park who connected his father's car battery and blinker to a light to get lions to go away. He's done a TED Talk if you want to look at it. It's called Richard Terreri's TED Talk. And a guy named Michael Mbithi began kind of developing Richard's idea into these lights. We started out with lights that were connected with a wire, and what we found is camels really like to eat that wire. So within a year or so, the lights were failing. In addition, the hot sun kind of damages the lights themselves. So our lights were failing, and they were working. Like 90% of a reduction in visitation is what we were having with these camera traps, and that was done again with master student research. We met a person from Australia who was doing something called fox lights in Australia to keep wolves and bears away from sheep during breeding season. So we tested this, 85% reduction in the approaching of predators to these bomas. These lights are a bit different though. They go up a little higher, and they make it look like there's activity around the boma. So it looks like somebody's driving a car or running around with flashlights. It has red lights and blue lights and white lights, so different kinds of lights, and everything's going off at a different time. So this one was a little less expensive, but only about 85% effective. So we thought, okay, well this one, because it's light, have you ever had a flashlight shined in your eye? And when that happens, your eyes go black for a second, and then when the light goes off, it goes black again. The same thing basically happens to the predators. So these lower lights that are shining at the predator are doing the same thing. So we thought we're going to be smarter than your average camel, and we're going to bury those wires, yeah? So we put trenches around the inside. The local people helped us dig those trenches, and what happened was the naked mole rats. They like those cables too. So we even tried putting them into PVC, which the naked mole rats chew into as well. And again, after about a year, all of these lights were beginning to fail. So Michael took some of this concept along with other technology, and he has now made it similar to like your lawn lights, that it has its own solar panel, and it has a little flasher unit built into each one. And he's able to produce these for about $170 per boma. With installation, it ends up being about $200 by the time people come out and install them and do consultation meetings and get polls and things like that as well. But we just got a grant to be able to install 120 more of these lights on the different bomas in Kajiado, near the Api study site, Samburu, and the Salama study site as well. So we're going to be putting in 120. One fear is what we're doing going to end up making it look like a big runway strip, right? The second is, will these guys get used to it over time? So again, only time will tell, but being able to have these as individual units put up on their own individual poles should continue to have the same results of 90% reduction in visitation, but without naked mole rats and camels doing their damage. So again, stay tuned, because I will keep presenting on this year after year and let you know how it goes over time. Again, in the Samburu community, we wanted to make sure that we were reaching every level of the community members. We have the mamas, who are more or less the decision makers in the family. They consult with the men and make the decisions on when and where to move livestock and where to send the children to school and all of that stuff. The elders, who are the ones who get out in the community and interact with each other and bring all that information back. The Morans, who are the warriors, and they are the protectors in the community.
And one area that I think we've really missed in a lot of the programs that are done in conservation is the young women, the ones who are the future mamas and or the ones who are going to go off to school. So with the sports, we began doing the same kind of football, you call it soccer in America, right? The soccer tournaments that we were doing, but the girls were saying, you know, we don't like to play soccer very much. Can we have volleyball and netball? Do you guys know what netball is? It's like basketball without a backboard. I can't do it. But the girls, that's what they play. And they say, you know, when we have to go into town and play against the city schools, we can't hit the hoop because we don't have hoops out here. So we've now installed 5 sets of volleyball nets, 5 sets of netball poles and nets, and 5 sets of soccer. So not only do the school kids get the opportunity to have fields to play on and practice on, but off of the school season, we have an opportunity to talk to all of these kids, the young women and the young men, about conservation. We're doing tree planting projects with them this year and continuing education programs on when they're off school. And then communicating continuously with the other young men as well. In order to bring all of this information together at both of our field sites, we, in the past, had lots of paperwork that everybody did. Our interview forms, our different data collection forms. So we decided that we wanted to go digital and get rid of the paper and practice what we preach in conservation. So we got rid of the big bags, and now everybody carries one individual phone when they go out. And all of our forms are on this one phone. We have a monitoring app, an interview app, and a national survey map, and I'm the only one allowed to play solitaire. Our older staff members have actually embraced this probably more than even the younger guys have, and have learned how to use these phone apps. I've also found that the friends of my younger warriors that are part of the project, I have a lot of Samburu friends that I can't speak in English to, but they love looking at my pictures and they love liking things on my Facebook. So learning how to use all of these tools has been important for us in our outreach to the rest of the community as well. I do have this PhD student who is working with us on the National Cheetah Survey, and she's using these interviews and what we call social data, along with the biological data, to look at the national distribution and the trends of the cheetah population. We're taking all of these areas where we found evidence of cheetahs in the past, and we're revisiting every single one of these locations. So our field sites continue to be managed by scientists on the ground while we're working on this National Cheetah Survey. Our goal is to make sure that we are looking at the threats and adaptations, the levels of human-wildlife conflict across the whole range, and the vegetation and land cover changes. This is Maddie and Warrior. They are our poop dogs, or our scat detection dogs. Maddie has at this point been able to find a cheetah fecal sample from 400 meters away, and Warrior about 250 meters away. This is Evans. He's our dog trainer, our dog handler, and he uses the tools that we can have access to look at wind, humidity, temperature, and everything to make sure that when we do our searches with the dogs, we choose the right type of search pattern in order to find the most fecal samples. When we were collecting poop without dogs, we found over 300 samples, of which only 30 turned out to be from cheetah. So far with the dogs, out of about 100 samples that they found, only 2 have turned out to not be cheetahs. So we're far, far more efficient with the dogs. These 2 dogs, but we're getting 2 more puppies as well, so we've expanded our dog program also. Our warriors travel with us, or our field officers. It's not just warriors, but our field officers travel with us, and they're the ones who basically collect the samples while the dogs continue the search. At this point, we have currently 18 Kenyans employed in our project. We have helped 15 different students complete master's programs. Noreen is our first PhD student. This is Noreen here. Sarah is currently at Yale University. She's my senior scientist. She's doing her master's program. And this guy here, Lentom, is in an undergraduate program since he only had a high school degree when he started working with us. Susan is related to us, but she went and finished
veterinary degree and is now a veterinarian working for another dog program, but has moved through our project as well. We've taken more than 31 college internships, that's both local and international, over 50 volunteers, and we've reached over 30,000 elementary and high school students. That again includes local, national, and international students. The guys that work with us who are not as interested in going back to school also become leaders in the community. They are constantly being asked to be on committees to help them form community development programs. And the training that we give them outside of just regular classes includes human-wildlife conflict, community development, conflict management, all of those kind of opportunities for seminars and programs our guys get to go to as well. Lumumba is one that has been able to take opportunities internationally. He's gone to Namibia for additional training there as well, as actually has Evans and Lentum have all gone to Namibia for different international training programs. I asked the guys, what is it that you feel we do towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? And they began circling the things and discussing why they think that we're actually achieving goals that are the goals on an international level. And these are almost 50% of what is the UN Sustainable Development Goals are being achieved by our project. So our project just isn't just about cheetahs, it's about people as well. And finally, I talked a little bit about this disease monitoring. These were the 6 babies, of which only 1 has ended up surviving. But of the other ones that we've been able to put back, this is with a Maybai Conservancy Ranger, that we've been able to put back, and we know that the mother took those babies back again. One of the disease programs that we're doing also is rabies. In Kenya, 2,000 people die from rabies per year. And in order to reduce that or eliminate that, we need to vaccinate dogs against rabies. I was bitten by a puppy that I was playing with, and I have had my rabies booster shots. So I was a little bit concerned, but I was like, okay, I'll just go talk to my doctor and I'll get another booster. When I found out that that puppy actually died a few days after it bit me. And I began asking my staff, how many of you vaccinate your dogs? And they go, why do you want to vaccinate your dogs? So we came up with this thing now that we have to get and reach out to the community about the importance of disease care within your domestic animals for your own health as well as for the wildlife. Rabies is a deadly virus. Children under 15 are the most affected by the rabies. And once symptoms show, there is no survival. So you have to do the vaccinations in the dogs. You have to take somebody in and get the rabies vaccine if they're bitten by a dog in order to prevent that rabies from continuing to kill people as well. We have been getting local and international recognition now for our projects. We were featured 2 years ago now on the Nation television locally. You can find it if you Google Cheetah NTV, and you will find that segment, which is about the detection dogs. We also completed a cheetah book this year. It's available on Elsevier, and it's a compilation of about 75 researchers across all of the scope of cheetahs, from zoos all the way into the history of cheetah with Cleopatra and Akbar the Great. So it's a very comprehensive, very thick book that is basically everything you did or did not want to know about cheetahs. But that was 3 years of my life, writing 5 of those chapters and contributing to 16 of them. Also, with what we're doing with the Live and Kicking, which is the people who make the footballs, they have balls other than just cheetahs, which happens to use our logo. They have balls that include rhino, shark, turtle, lion, zebra also, and those are all made in Kenya. So what can you guys do? I guess that's the last thing I want to talk to you about is how can you help wildlife conservation? All the lectures that you guys have here show you a abundance of programs that are available in your own backyard as well as internationally. But the one thing that I want to challenge everybody to do is to live your life in a conservation standard as well. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. I think we've all heard that over and over and over. Make sure that what you use in your day-to-day lives is sustainable as well. When you do donate to conservation projects, please try to donate to projects that put back into their communities as well. Learn about predators and conservation. We have some flyers up here. We do offer a trip that people can come on, that you spend 4 days in each of our study sites and you spend 5 days on safari. I have a flyer up here about that. Buying our cool crafts. My sister Phyllis is in the back here and can help everybody ring up any crafts that they might want to purchase. Do your Christmas shopping early, a little earlier than I normally am here. If you would like to buy the balls, we do have some of the balls available. Calendars, and there's a book here that's also written in Kenya by a Kenyan friend of mine. It's a Kenyan artist, a Kenyan author, and it's printed in Kenya as well, which is why the cheetah hunts at night. So it was the story basically of what I told you about how the cheetahs are adapting to hunt at night. I'm going to open it up for questions, but our voice is the cheetah's future. I'm very proud of the young people that work with me in Kenya who are the future leaders in Kenyan cheetah conservation and other carnivore programs as well. But the more people we can reach, the more these future leaders will make a difference in politics and on the ground. The zoos that support us, without the zoo support that I'm given to be able to do this work, I would be nowhere. Because you can't do any of these programs without funding. I couldn't employ all the people that I have on the ground doing this work. This is actually the jewelry section of the crafts, and these are made from traditional trade beads. They're made from recycled and renewable resources. Our wood is all softwood products. Some of the recycled things, for example, these are made out of the tread from tires. These silver ones are made from old cooking pans, aluminum cooking pans, which they embed with cheetah logos and things like that. So working together with these communities, we look at how we can promote the conservation of the species at the same time as some of the crafts that are their traditional livelihoods. So I want to thank you guys for coming tonight and for listening to this program. And if you do have any questions, I can take a few questions, but feel free, if somebody wants to get up and go ahead and start looking at the crafts, you're welcome to do that while people are talking. Yes?
2 questions, if I can remember the second one.
Okay.
You said that the cheetah has an eye that is designed more like a human eye. You're finding that they're hunting now at the dark of night. Are their eyes changing? The structure of their eyes?
No, the structure of their eye isn't changing. We believe that's an adaptation to basically human movement patterns. But those in the park are also doing a lot of nighttime movement, like Elena's picture with that one that hunted in the dark. Which might be because the other predators who move in and out of the park are also more active on the lighter nights instead of just on the darker nights. Originally in the Salama area, we thought it was because the livestock grazing during the day were changing the cheetahs to be hunting at night. So it's, yeah. Their eyes themselves are not changing, but they're learning to hunt at different times and learning to swim.
That's cool.
We also had a cheetah, while we had the radio collar on it, that actually jumped 4 feet up into a tree and took a vervet monkey. When Noreen did her first fecal studies, she found the hand of a vervet monkey 5 years later in a cheetah poop. So cheetahs are eating vervet monkeys, which used to be only leopards would do that. So how often, we're not completely sure. The more fecal studies we do, the more we'll know if monkeys are on the diet more often. Diversity is the biggest thing, that cheetahs have a big diversity of prey.
The second question was that you said that the group that had the baby cheetahs, that they had killed one mother. How did, I mean, cheetahs don't have like 6 cubs.
They can give birth to between 4 and 10 cubs.
Really?
Yeah, it's leopards that only give birth to 2.
Okay.
1 or 2. Yeah.
How many average survive out of a litter?
Usually only 5% of their babies survive. If she's lucky enough,
if she's unlucky enough that all of the cubs die or are killed, she goes right back into season again and will give birth right away again. So that's one of their adaptations to having a low survivorship. The cheetah is not a fighter, it runs. So if it becomes highly stressed, whether it can't find food, there's too many other predators, there's too many people, they abandon their babies sometimes. It isn't just that their babies get killed by the other animals, but all the way back into the early studies in the 1960s, 5% to 10% of the babies are all that survive, which is why their population doesn't grow like a lion's population. When lion populations recover, they recover quite fast because their baby survivorship is high. But cheetahs have a very, very low survivorship of their babies, historically. Yes?
I noticed your scat dogs wear boots. Why is that?
So we have a very thorny area, and if a scat dog's feet get infected, also it's very hot. And I think that from any advertisements I've even seen on the televisions here in America, if it's too hot on their feet, they will get blisters on their feet. So the fact that we do have them searching for 4 to 6 hours a day means that their feet take a beating. So they wear the boots to protect mainly against the thorns.
What are the boots made of?
They're like a little shoe for a dog. They have a little tread on the bottom, and they Velcro up the leg, and there's even little socks for them. Because you know dogs sweat through their feet, so yeah. So it's got like a felt lining on the inside to kind of absorb the sweat. And whenever the dogs take a break, when we're out searching with the dogs, every 15 to 20 minutes we sit under the shade, take the boots off, air out their feet, put the boots back on. So it's quite a process when you're searching with the dogs. Yeah. They also, their collar is a army grade collar that's actually bulletproof, so that if a leopard or a lion do get a hold of the dogs, the likelihood is they're not going to do a lot of damage to the dogs, especially their organ area. And then the collar that they wear is a tracking collar that we have a GPS tracking on them, so they have a pretty thick collar. But their tail is about 3/4 the length of the body. And the tail, not only is it long and do they use it for balance, but it's actually like a rudder. It's flat on one side, so they completely use it like the rudder of a boat to give themselves balance for those quick turns that they have to make when they're hunting. So it's flat on one side and round on the other side. When I worked in Namibia, we had some wild cheetahs that had been injured and came into our facility there. And when we tried to feed them horse or cow or goat or donkey, they didn't want any of that meat. We literally, in Namibia, we could go out and shoot a kudu or a warthog, and as soon as we gave that meat to those wild cheetahs, they ate it right away, but they did not want the livestock. So I believe that they prefer the wild game. But as opportunities present themselves, human population is growing, human population is expanding. If goats are wandering around without a herder paying attention to it and they walk right into a cheetah, of course a cheetah is going to take it. And on some occasions the cheetah hears the goats coming and she's hungry, she's going to hunt. He or she is going to hunt. So it's more opportunistic, and very rarely when we investigate a loss has it been a cheetah that specifically is targeting the livestock. It's opportunistic. Yes. Yes.
You did say like she more often. Is there like a sex difference between?
No.
Like,
it's a pretty much 50-50 ratio, but I, for some reason, I am a cat lover and I always had female cats, and I kind of just say she for cats, but males and females are about equal numbers.
Or I meant just hunting on livestock.
Oh, no, males do too. Males, if they're in group, have more opportunities to be able to take down other prey. Individual males do kill livestock more often than groups of males do. Yeah. Yes?
Two quick questions. One, is there breeding between subpopulations of cheetah?
So the connectivity level, do you mean?
So you were saying like there's those 4 subpopulations of cheetahs.
Oh, the 3 subspecies.
Yeah, subspecies.
So they are 99.9999999% identical. So yes, they can breed with each other, but we don't have enough of the genetic samples to know where that distinction is and how intermingled it is right now.
Okay.
That's what these fecal studies are going to allow us to do, is to look at the connectivity between those populations as well as between the different groups within within individual subspecies. But the Acinonis jubatus has typically been in the south, and the Samarangai has typically been in the north. There's a lot of argument between taxonomists and geneticists as well. Because they're so identical, are they really different subspecies? Physically, they have some differences in their spot patterns, in their size ratio, but genetically, they are so close to identical that there's only a few alleles that are different.
Okay, and then the other question, have you been noticing, or has there been any studies as to whether the cheetah's been more successful hunting at night versus hunting in the day?
No studies have shown that any of that yet. Most likely, the success rate is a little bit lower, but we don't really know yet.
Okay.
Just because if you were trying to run at night, you'd run into a few things, and I think they would too. Yes?
So I know that CCF does a lot of livestock guarding dog placements. Do you guys do that as well?
In the beginning of our project, we did a lot of interviews to how people use their dogs and how old the dogs live to be and whether or not they take the dogs out with herding. And most people in Kenya use the dogs mainly for guarding their homesteads. If they travel out with the herders, a lot of times the dogs hunt a lot, dik-diks and rabbits and things like that. So the kind of two other aspects of it is that dogs are not well fed, but they're in usually several dogs in one homestead, and these livestock guarding dogs, being dogs, they would bond with those other dogs as well. So if you already have a lot of dogs at home and you try to put a livestock guarding dog and then you say no, you can't interact with the other dogs, it would be really hard to get that to happen. Second of all, there's a high Muslim population in Kenya, and traditionally they believe that dogs are dirty, and if you get saliva of a dog on you, you have to wash yourself 7 times, and therefore a whole different mindset shift would have to happen, not just in the care of the dogs that are in the hands of those people who do have dogs, but also to get over a little bit of that fear that a dog is dirty. So we've looked at how people use their dogs and whether or not we can improve the level of use of the dogs in that type of thing, but getting the Anatolian guard dogs in there, we felt the time has not yet reached us for that. Yes?
Between the genetics and then the picture ID, are you hoping to maybe one day build a pedigree?
That's what we're working on. The first master's student, the Kenyan master's student that is working on the genetics with us right now, is focused on those cheetahs in the Masai Mara that Elena already has so much of the pedigree information maternally, and he's looking at paternal lineage as well. So we're looking at both microsatellite and mitochondrial DNA. And then that we're going to be putting out into the National Cheetah Survey with what we learned from the Masai Mara area. Does that make sense? Yes?
Do you get any calls for people calling about a dead livestock animal and then claiming it's a cheetah or a lion or hyena, and then they don't really know what killed it, or they're claiming it's one animal, and then you go out and ID exactly and kind of help these people figure out what's killing it, or they're not letting one predator.
It's a good part of what our field staff do. So in the Salama area, we have 4 field officers. In the Samburu area, we have 7. And when they receive a call, they try to get to that call within 24 hours so that they can first and foremost figure out which predator has caused the conflict, and then to give advice on how to prevent future conflict in that way. We also have a student from Colorado State University who has just taken all of the data that we've collected and all of the information we share, and she's putting it into a toolkit that we will be able to give to herders about predator ID, all the different levels of predator loss prevention. So we've taken other similar programs in Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Tanzania, and we've taken some of the best from what they've done that we've been advising our local people on, and we've now been putting that into the book that Sonora is about ready to finish. So her master's project was totally on putting all of the information we share with the community into one toolkit. But that is a good portion of what the guys do when they're out on a daily basis on their patrols. If somebody says I had a loss 3 weeks ago, then they say, well, tell me about it, and what did you do, and what can you do to make it so you don't have any further losses. Of the investigations we've made, 85% of the people that we've given advice to have had no further livestock losses. Yeah.
From cheetahs or?
Any predator.
Any predator.
Yeah. Most of what we've investigated turns out, people blame it on cheetahs a lot, especially because we work there. Most of it turns out to be hyena or leopard, and on occasion lions. Jackals a little bit during the day, and wild dogs as well. But the percentage of what turns out to actually be cheetah that caused it is a lot lower than we thought it was going to be.
What is the cheetah's primary wildlife prey, or is there one?
So Noreen, the PhD student, her master's study was looking at the hair content of the cheetahs in our study area. And what she found out is there were about 14 different species that were preyed on. The majority of it, similar to what's been found in a lot of other areas, are those animals that are between 20 and 60 kgs. And they are usually like Dick, Thompson's gazelles, Grant's gazelles, those type of things. But also hares and spring hares, hyraxes, even mongooses. And like I said, we found the vervet monkey in one of the scats as well. So her number of scats, the fact that 300 poops and only 30 turned out to be cheetah, her number was fairly low, but gave us the idea that there was a big diversity in the prey. Also, where cheetahs are typically found, this is true in the Serengeti and in Namibia as well, is not necessarily where there's a super high density of prey, but where there's a big diversity of prey. So cheetahs seem to be picky eaters, and they don't want to eat the same thing every day. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mary.